Yeah, Friday. It's Groundhog Day this week.
Yeah, he saw a shadow. He got hit.
Yeah, we always talk about Groundhog Day and how to wash, rinse, repeat, call it whatever you cliche you possibly want. And it just amazes me how, the left and the right work so differently. I was talking to a bunch of conservatives last week while I was away, and they're talking about how the right thing versus winning an election. And what we decided was the left has stolen elections by capturing, not because they're thieves. I'm not talking about that's a whole other conversation, but it's just the thought police in the media, the thought police in the universities, the politicians, what they're like, and everybody is just fighting them because there's just so much. And it just amazes me every single time we do that. There's another layer and another layer and another layer that they add on top of it. Stuart, on Monday, actually, my beloved Montreal Canadiens were in Minnesota. Okay. And we know what's going on in Minnesota. And you know what they told the Canadians? Carry your passports because ICE is here. And if you're not careful, ICE will detain you and throw you out. And this kind of fear is just like, what? I've spoken to Minnesotans. And what you see in the media and what you see there is, again, it's just a ramp up. It's noise. It's ongoing, this insanity, Stuart, that just doesn't end. The left is trying to convince you and me that what we see today is absolute chaos, anarchy, and what that they're providing is the solution to all of our problems. Peace in our times, a solstice, a kumbaya. Except they're nuts. They're freaking nuts. Some of the stuff that they want to do, what they're saying, how they're acting, I don't know about you, Stuart. I don't want a piece of it. How about you?
Oh boy. What are we talking about, right? Why certain political narratives reoccur in the national conversation? Why do they dominate headlines? Why can they sometimes drift from the straight factual grounding into interfering emotional and strategic message? That's what you just said, David, right?
Oh, yeah.
The threat of a passport. Okay. I was recently with Risa, was in from Toronto.
Oh, hey.
And she was telling me that all of her friends are told, don't go to Florida. ICE is going to get them. Century Village is empty. Units going on the cheap because Canadians are afraid they're going to get deported. This isn't about scoring partisan talking points. It's about understanding how narratives are shaped and how they travel faster than fact and how they influence people and perception, which was one of the key motivations for removing funding to organizations that provided false and misleading information. And that's not a Trump idiom. That's just a material fact. Earlier this year, and reaffirmed just the last couple of days, the NAACP Board of Directors issued a formal travel advisory for the state of Florida. Yep. Free America, where we don't care who you are, what you do, just come here legally, lawfully, and don't tell us your problems because, we don't care. Not for terrorism, not for weather threats, not for disease, but citing concerns about political and social climate, including state laws related to education, diversity, program, and civil rights, and their cooperation with an organization called ICE. Now, if you're a tourist and you come to Florida, you arrived on a tourist visa when you entered the United States. Unless you've overstayed your tourist visa, you're lawfully in this country. Now, we could talk about Mexico. We could talk about Canada, where the laws are actually more strict, and more brutal than they are in the United States.
Except nobody,
Because in Canada, you don't get
except
asylum.
nobody puts them into Stuart. Nobody enforces them in Canada. So let's
Well,
just
that's something else. The advisory, right, that was given to all travelers aware of the open hostility towards African American and people of color. And the points to the legislation concerning what we can be and cannot be taught in schools is rational. This is a continuation of the advisory from May 2023. Well before the coordinated global attention on Florida that will accompany 2026 FIFA World Cup. But now it's being referenced yet again in a political commentary in a more broader alarm. Listeners should note the advisory was a voluntary policy statement from a civil rights organization, not a government travel warning. Yep. Similar advisories have been issued previously by other advocacy groups. When you talk about George Soros and his wonderful Open Society Foundation. But we're going to continue on with what the advisory did do and provide independent government verified data showing a dramatic increase in violence or risk to travelers, such as the types of analysis the U.S. State Department or CDC uses for international travel advisories. A lot of coverage on the left, a lot. David, you talked about the passport hunger. You hear about how the Canadians are no longer coming to Florida because, I think it's because they just can't fucking afford it. But, their excuse is they're afraid of Donald J. Trump. It's also worth stepping back for a moment. And let's get to the core topic that you and I talk about, how the media outlets select and frame these stories, or should we call them fables? Long analysis of media coverage always shows over and over and over again that the outlets across the spectrum rarely present systematical terms. For example, outlets identify as lean left emphasize systematic inequalities and abusive affecting immigrants. Outlets identify lean right emphasis enforcing border security and crime stories. This is documented in systematic media surveys, headlines, and placement of top emphasis that has been covered by the right media because the left obviously doesn't want to cover it, right? That doesn't automatically mean any given report is false, but it means listeners should be aware of a pattern, especially when it covers repeated focus on sensationalism stories. Political ads and media representations are now compressed into what's called the news. Let me say that again. Political ads and media representation have compressed, causing a complex advertising system to increase fear-based politics because nothing else they can run on. We talked about this way back when, I think it was in our first years, David, when we talked about presidents used to run on a platform, what we did right, what we're going to do right, and how we're going to do it right. Remember that conversation, David, way back when?
All too many times.
Okay. The debate was, what are they telling you they've done well? What would they like to rinse and repeat? There was nothing. It was all about hatred towards the first Donald J. Trump. Let's expand the narrative, right, for immigration debate, just for a moment. Another policy where emotions run. Research on immigrants' effects from crime statistics showed a mix to something very surprising. A broad claim that immigration uniformly increases violent crime and that are not supported by any aggregate data. It kind of oversimplifies it, right? And about job displacement. Yet political commentary uses these nuisances and these findings in place of headlines, crisis at the border, You know, David, crisis at the border. There was no crisis at the border when Obama had caged children. Do you know that, David? Remember the picture of the Obama cages?
Mm-hmm.
The left had created a void of amnesia. Little Debbie Wasserstrom, little girl lives in a
Oh,
country
damn,
in
you
West.
keep going back to her again and
Oh, I
again. What's your
can't.
love affair with Debbie? I don't get
Yeah,
it.
because he's a little.
Anyways, yeah.
All of these patterns keep coming back over and over and over again. And there's no more distinction or interpretation of what is fact, what is news, and what is propaganda. And the propaganda line is coming harder, faster, without any resistance. That's a problem. You don't have the Walter Cronkites in the media anymore. They're no longer existent. They're not here. You don't have them. You don't have any backstops in editorial rooms stopping reporters from going out on the ledge. You have editors who are now pushing journalists to come up with more and more horrible news coverage.
Okay, but so your points are extremely valid, Stuart. And I'll tell you that we're seeing a little bit of a pivot at the media because the media has realized, you know what, we've gone too far. You saw it CBS, NBC, and now Washington Post, because apparently they've been accused of race-based coverage. Ooh, what a shock. Okay. And now we're starting to see layoffs and dismissals in a lot of these organizations. But they have been believing, Stuart, they've been drinking the Kool-Aid for decades, that they're the do-gooders. They're the ones that hold the torch. And the NAACP, that was originally started as, you know, an organization to help not just the Black community, but other communities, has gone in a different direction. A lot of these groups, to maintain some sort of validity, have to create some sort of noise. And when you do it, say, oh, we should, like, you know, you should have a travel advisory for Florida. It's interesting
For the World Cup. For the World Cup.
For the World Cup.
For the World Cup.
And you know, the funny thing is that we've had the World Cup in where? Qatar. We had it in Brazil. And I didn't hear a damn word from any of these groups saying, maybe we shouldn't go to a terrorist nation. Maybe we should be careful going to Brazil because of certain, you know, travel advisories that the government has put out. No, only Florida.
Yeah.
Because once again, if you're not with me, you're against me.
Yep.
If you don't agree with me,
say that again. Say that again. Say that one more time.
If you do not agree with me, you are my enemy.
Wow.
This is the message driven time and time again. And it's fascinating how when you show the left that they're wrong, they double down, they yell at you, they will violently attack you. Listen, what's going on in Minnesota, and we've talked about this on several rants, Stuart, what's going on in Minnesota is a great example. Defund the police. It was okay until, wait, no, you crossed the line. Then it's, I'm going to attack authority because they're not right. Authority has no power over me. And Billie Eilish is that rant we did on Wednesday about Billie Eilish is just exactly what the left wants. I just don't understand. If I don't get what I want, do I throw a hissy fit like a child and get violent? Because that's what happens with a car, kicking, you know, I don't care what you are. You could be a nice little suburban housewife. You could be a doctor. You could be a nurse, a lawyer, a business person. I don't care what you are. But when you cross the line of what would be acceptable, can I come into your house and kick your windows because I didn't like your dinner? Like, this is essentially what you're saying. This is exactly what you're saying. My behavior is because I'm angry. My behavior is because I disagree with you. And therefore, I will go to crazy lengths to get what I want. And for the NAACP to put out this type of warning, to tell Montreal Canadiens, you are in trouble if you walk around without a passport because ICE will deport you. This is the hysteria that they are creating. Now, I ranted without you, Stuart, that the right is no better. The gaslighting on the right from certain people has also been equally as egregious. But I'm going to put it aside for just a second. Because when you have a guy like Chuck Schumer who says that voting or ID laws are like Jim Crow 2.0, but if I want to go visit Chuck Schumer, Stuart, can I just walk in without an ID? No. But to go vote, that's okay. Can I get a license? Can I go visit a hospital without an ID?
Nope.
No. But to vote, I should not be demanded and requested to hold a voter ID. And to call it Jim Crow 2.0, even people on the left are going, whoa, okay, whoa. You're just, it's too far. When you have politicians calling ICE Gestapo agents, you're going too far. It's just a question. You want to oppose it? Oppose it. No problem. That's a democracy. But the moment you label it, and this is exactly what they did to Donald Trump, right? You're a Nazi, you're Hitler, you're a fascist. You're trying to apply a label on something without context. And your attitude is, as long as the label sticks, I get a vote.
Yep.
As long as the vote sticks, you're going to believe that that person causes anarchy. You're going to vote for me. And the left realizes after winning a couple of, they won a special election in Texas and they won, attorney general in the fall in Virginia, all based on this rhetoric. And they believe it works. It's not going to work in a general election. People don't want to hear the rhetoric. The problem becomes is that, yes, you might disagree about how ICE is handling things in Minnesota. Is it perfect? Far from it.
No, I agree.
But to sit here and to tell me that you're going to go ahead and believe that they're storming every legal citizen's home like the Gestapo and rounding up people as if they're going to shoot them like the Gestapo did in Germany, you're out of your freaking mind. And so for the NAACP to put out a travel advisory for Florida, we're back to the square one again.
I want to ask you a question, David. When you enter the building to see the NAACP, what's the first thing they ask you when you walk in?
I'm pretty sure that you need an ID to get into that building. I'm pretty sure. And it's funny because it's okay. But Stuart, this is the same people who also said, gay people shouldn't go to Florida because their lives will be threatened because of that no gay law. Of course, that didn't happen. Of course, none of it was true. And that narrative disappeared because it didn't stick. Canadians are not going to the United States because they're being influenced here by the media, yes, but a 40% premium on the dollar is a bigger deterrent. So if it costs me $1.40 for everything and I see eggs at the time, and by the way, I did see eggs at the time at $9 a carton, I don't want to go to the United States. It is not because of Donald Trump. It's a cost thing. It's an insurance thing. Things have changed. But the media won't let you learn that by yourself. The media won't let you realize the truth because it will go against its narrative. And the narrative has to be to enforce the chaos that conservatives are bringing to the table. When something is fixed over here, we pivot over here. If there's a scandal over here, like we just had with Tim Walz, we got to move the message over here. Fascinating how that continues to happen. And you see it in media. The View, politicians, they rant and rave about the same antics. Okay? When you are Jasmine Crockett or Presley or any of these crazed loonies on the left calling for like Maxime Waters, you're calling for violence as a form of opposition. You should be incarcerated. You should be incarcerated. The same way you can't yell fire in a movie theater, you should not incite violence. Funny how January the 6th is on every tongue of every lefty politician, media person, that Donald Trump should go to jail because he incited violence. But the left is okay to do it. What's your favorite expression, Stuart?
Rules for me, not for thee.
Wrap it up, my friend.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been another incredible week as I reach over to that far button. You know what, David? Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern, we take it down and tell people the facts. And, as we break 50,000 people that take in our wonderful little podcast, I got to tell you, people do listen, I guess. All right, David, wrap it up. Kill it.
Stuart, let me just tell you something, folks. When you're sitting down today and watching the Olympic opening ceremonies today, and you don't think, as an American, if you don't think about the nationalism and how to be a true American and proud